Now to the White House, where the Trump administration is ramping up its anti-immigration policies. Officials are eyeing an even more aggressive approach to border security. The White House also wants to make it more difficult for immigrants fleeing persecution to be approved for asylum. President Trump is heading to Texas today.
That's right. Border authorities arrested more than 103,000 people in March, part of a sharp increase since President Trump took office. Border Patrol says more than 92,000 of those people were caught between ports of entry. And Major Garrett joins us now from the White House. Major, the president says he wants to toughen immigration policy by detaining migrants for longer periods and making it more difficult to obtain asylum. Yeah. How likely is the Trump administration to make those changes?
Well, Congress has to deal with both of those, especially on the question of asylum. If Congress doesn't change the law, the president, as he has been told by federal courts, as he was told by his soon-to-be ousted and publicly ousted Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, Mr. President, there's only so much we can do and continue to obey existing law. The president is frustrated with existing law, to be sure. But until he creates a consensus in Congress to change those laws, signs the new ones, he is bound by precedent, by law, by the Constitution to follow those laws. And he objects to being restrained by federal courts that have intervened on a number of occasions, most recently this week with a federal court saying this idea that those who are seeking asylum in the United States are held in Mexico while they await adjudication of that asylum claim is not in consistency with existing U.S. law. And until you change the laws, and this is the problem the president constantly runs into, he says it's Democrats refuse to give him the votes, therefore he's handcuffed with these bad laws. He constantly talks about the worst laws in the world, et cetera, et cetera. Well, guess what? You're the executive branch. You set all this dialogue in motion. But a co-equal branch of government, the legislative branch, has to work with you, and you have to work with it to write new laws. That's how it works. It's very, very simple in that sense. Those two things must happen. Getting that done is difficult work. Washington has been struggling with the particulars of immigration reform for nearly a decade. The president knew that when he campaigned, promised that he would be a deal maker and that he could create these solutions. What he has is an ever-increasing problem on the border. His hardline policies don't seem to be the deterrent the administration has frequently described them as being. Migrants keep coming in families with unaccompanied children and others that require detention and other facilities that either don't exist or are being strained. What the president does with this reality is going to determine a lot about the conversation about immigration in the 2020 re-election campaign and how the country is perceiving what he promised and what the actual results have been.
So the president said a lot yesterday, Major.
Yes, he did.
And he appeared to say that his administration's family separation policy was actually effective. Here's a little bit of what he said.
President Obama had child separation. Take a look. The press knows it. You know it. We all know it. I'm the one that stopped it. President Obama had child separation. Now, I'll tell you something. Once you don't have it, that's why you see many more people coming. They're coming like it's a picnic, because let's go to Disneyland. President Obama separated children. They had child separation. I was the one that changed it.
All right, Major Garrett.
Okay.
Can you please clarify what the president said? Is he accurate?
Partially. Were families separated during the Obama administration? Yes, because there were a couple of court cases and underlying federal law that said if you're being detained for a period of time, you can't detain small children with adults in places where adults are being detained. That is for, in theory, the benefit of the children to protect them from exposure to lots of different adults that are not their family members. That is a requirement, not only of underlying federal law generally, but in some specific court cases. And when there were apprehensions at the border, as there were under the Obama administration, it's not as if the Obama administration didn't enforce the borders. It did. There were times when families were separated. What is different in the Trump administration is the zero tolerance policy, meaning everyone who crosses the border without proper documentation is detained and arrested then detained, when you have a zero tolerance policy, you have many, many more people apprehended, detained, and one of the new wrinkles of these migrant and refugee flows, if you want to call it that, is that many families are traveling together or there are unaccompanied minors with other adults. Well, if they come to the border that way and you have a zero tolerance policy, by definition, you must separate them. And the Attorney General, former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, said when describing this policy, it was created to be a deterrent, meaning the administration knew zero tolerance would require not only mass apprehensions, mass detentions, but at a very much higher level and visibility, family separation. That's exactly what happened. And for a while, the administration tried to dodge that underlying set of facts, but it was forced under congressional scrutiny to admit zero tolerance policy led to family separations at a much higher level than ever occurred during the Obama administration. So the president is partially correct. Did it happen? Yes. Did it happen at anywhere near the magnitude and as a result of a direct policy decision? No. That's exactly what happened under the Trump administration.
And many children still remain not reunited with their families.
We don't know where they are.
We don't even know where
the
they
administration
are.
doesn't know.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. Major Garrett at the White House for us. Major, thank you for that clarification. It was very important, and very important that we share that with our